"John, you look so serious. What's going on?" "I've fallen for a girl who's more beautiful than you. You take care of the kid by yourself." I was surprised to hear that John had something to talk about due to his serious expression, but then I realized that was what it was all about. Calling our child a brat and taking a high-handed attitude with me. After he swung me around, I was dumbfounded by this treatment. I only told him to give me some time to think and went to the bedroom. But after a while, I could hear the sound of the front door closing. It seems John has left the house, and he's probably heading to Rose's place. I was already fed up with John's attitude. His overbearing demeanor, acting as if he was providing for us. But the money he brought home was a pittance. And now he's cheating with my best friend. Thinking about it, Rose has always been taking away the people I liked. And John calling his child a brat, clearly not having any affection. If he only cared for our precious child in my womb, I would have endured it alone. But this miserable end could have been avoided. I will raise this child well and with dignity. Those two will probably fall to rock bottom if left alone. But that alone won't satisfy me. They should regret their actions, and even if they cry and beg, it's too late now. My name is Emily. I'm 26 years old. I live in an apartment that my parents bought for us, with my husband John. My parents had been working overseas since I was young. So I was raised by my paternal grandparents. When I was little, I was frail, so when my parents had to go abroad, they consulted with my grandparents, who strongly wished to take care of me. It seems that my parents, unable to take the sickly me abroad, left me in the care of my grandparents. It would be a lie to say I wasn't lonely, but I know that my grandparents loved and cherished me. Moreover, whenever my parents had time, they would video call. And when they could take a long break, they would come back to Japan to see me. Having spent such an early childhood, I gradually became healthier before entering junior high school. And I was able to lead a life no different from that of an average person. Then, when I was in high school, my grandparents were involved in a traffic accident on their way back from shopping and passed away. Considering their age, they had discussed it with my parents and prepared a will. According to that will, I was to receive all of the insurance money and inheritance from my grandparents. Due to their work, my parents couldn't stay in Japan permanently. But they bought me an apartment to fulfill my selfish wish to stay in Japan. I started living alone in high school, but my parents sent me more than enough money. And thanks to my grandmother, who had taught me various things like cooking, I was able to live on my own. Even after I started working, they told me to save money for emergencies and continued to send me money. So I had not touched my grandparents' inheritance. I met John, who would become my husband, at a client company of the firm I joined. John seemed to have fallen in love with me at first sight when he came for a business discussion at my company, and after his relentless pursuit, we went on several dates and started dating. My relationship with John progressed smoothly, and about a year later, he proposed and we got married. My parents attended the wedding, but I had only told John that they were very busy. 3 months into our marriage, I told him about my parents always being abroad and what kind of work they were doing. This was because, in past relationships, there had been people who were only interested in my parents' money. So I decided to talk about my parents only after I could trust someone. What? Seriously, Emily's parents are awesome. Let's just keep getting the money they send. Then we'd have a little more breathing room in our finances. I'd like to live on our income. Come on, please. Hey, even if it's just at the beginning. Just at the beginning, if that's the case, I'll talk to my parents about it. When I told John that, I consulted with my parents, and they gladly agreed, saying that was the least they could do. For a few months after that, John did put the proper amount of money into the house. But gradually, that amount started to decrease. Even when I discussed this with John, he made excuses, saying just for this month, but the amount he put into the house never returned to the original amount the following month or the months after. John was probably using the money for himself, as he started coming home drunk more often. I tried to discuss it with him many times, but there was no reasoning with a drunk John. He used to help with the housework before, but now he does not do anything. And my dissatisfaction with John continues to grow. I became a housewife at John's request. But I couldn't just live on the money he sent us and thought it wouldn't be good for us. Unable to discuss it with John, I decided to take on a part-time job. A few days after I started working part-time at the local supermarket, John came home angry. "Hey, who permitted you to work part-time? I didn't say it was okay. Don't do things on your own. Quit right now. It's shameful. Are you saying you're dissatisfied with just my salary? Shameful. I'm not dissatisfied with your salary, but you're not bringing it home. We can't live like this. What? There's the money I send. Enough. Don't go to your part-time job tomorrow. If you won't quit, I'll call and quit for you." True to his word, John called the next day when I went to work. And I was told, "Your husband called." I couldn't bring our domestic issues into my workplace, so I had to resign. I decided to talk to my childhood best friend Rose about the situation with John. That happened, pooh Emily, I'll give John a piece of my mind. I initially refused her offer, but knowing she wouldn't take no for an answer, I ended up bringing Rose home that day. When I told John about Rose's visit, he surprisingly canceled his plans to go out and came straight home. When the three of us were talking, John said to Rose, "Man, when I saw you at the wedding, I thought you were the cutest of all. No flattery." Sobbed John. "That makes me happy. You're handsome too. But hey, Emily was complaining, you know. You should let her keep her part-time job, right? If Rose says so, I guess I have to let her keep it. Ha ha. Hee. So what do you do for work, John? I've always been curious. Emily wouldn't tell me. I just watched Rose and John talking and laughing together. Rose's way of speaking felt somehow unpleasant, as if she was blaming me. But I stayed silent, thinking if this changes John's mind, it's for the best. As I headed to the kitchen to prepare dinner, I overheard Rose asking John why he married me. She seemed to have a good amount of belongings and looked like she had money. He said, laughing. I wondered if John married me for money, but I didn't recall talking about my assets. The conversation about my parents' jobs happened after we got married. So I told myself it must be a joke, and I was just overthinking it. However, a certain conversation between Rose and John lingered in my mind. I wish I had met such a handsome man who I get along with so well before Emily did. It feels like she's not a good match for him, like it's a waste of her. Ha ha. It's not too late to switch now. Just kidding. Ha ha. I was shocked by John's response to Rose's laughter. Indeed, ha ha. You're prettier than her, and it's fun to talk to you. Maybe I should switch over. Ha ha. Rose often ended up dating people I liked after getting close to them, so I felt anxious. And John was being John. A normal person wouldn't say such things, knowing I might be listening. After Rose left late at night, I went to the living room where John was to tell him that today's conversation made me feel uncomfortable from a wife's perspective. Rose said you should be allowed to work part-time. Can't let down a beauty, it would ruin my image. Emily, you can work part-time. What? No, but seriously, Rose is cute. Hey, I want to consult with her again. And in case something comes up, give me Rose's contact details. Oh, okay. I felt a bit unpleasant realizing that John changed his mind so easily at Rose's single remark when he wouldn't listen to my persuasions. But I reassured myself that we were married, not just dating, and that everything would be fine. Since I now had permission, I decided to start working part-time in an office in a few days. Since I started my part-time job, John started coming home later than usual. And on holidays, he began to leave the house more often, saying he had work. Even when at home, he increasingly smiled at his phone, taking it with him to the bathroom and shower. When the phone rang, he'd move away from me, sometimes going out to the balcony. I couldn't shake the suspicion that something was blatantly off. But I was worried about angering John again if it turned out to be just my misunderstanding. So I said nothing to him. Shortly after, feeling unwell for several days, I decided to go to the hospital. The tests revealed that I was 4 months pregnant. Overwhelmed with joy, I cried at the hospital and hurriedly sent a message to John to inform him. However, John came home late that night, after the date had changed. I stayed up waiting for him, and as soon as John returned, I immediately told him about the pregnancy. John seemed shocked and asked repeatedly, "Is it true?" At first, I thought he was overwhelmed with joy. But John's stern face and silence as he headed to the bath, followed by a phone call he made, left me eavesdropping. Since I shared the news of my pregnancy, John started staying out overnight without any notice. Months passed with hardly any communication, and one day, unusually early from work, John told me he had something important to say. "John, you seem serious. What's the matter?" "I fell for a woman more beautiful than you. You take care of the kid by yourself." Hearing that there was an important talk, I was surprised by his serious demeanor. But his words made me realize what was happening. I was stunned. He referred to our child as the kid and had been acting domineering towards me, tossing me around after all this. I just told him I needed some time to think and went to the bedroom. Shortly after, I heard the front door close. It seemed John had left the house, probably headed to Rose's place. As I was pondering this, Rose called. "Is John at home?" "Why?" "So, no reason. Just curious. You always make fun of me like this. I'm sick of it." "Did John tell you?" "Sorry. I took another one of your loved ones. But I fell for him, you know. It can't be helped, right?" "Can't be helped." "Yeah, it can't be helped. It was fate. So Emily, can I have John?" I was left speechless by Rose's words and hung up the phone. Betrayed by the two people I loved, I was resolved to protect the child inside me. I started to prepare for my revenge against John and Rose. I told my parents everything, and though they were angry, they were overjoyed by the prospect of their grandchild and agreed not to interfere until my revenge was complete. I got a detective, recommended by my father, to investigate both John and Rose. And then, a few days later, when I thought John had come home, he demanded a divorce again. At that moment, my strategy began. Pretending to cry and throwing a tantrum about not wanting a divorce, John responded to me with disgust. "Hey, don't cry. You're not appealing to me anymore. Rose is prettier and more fun to be around, so I'm giving the kids to you. Please, let's get divorced." He understood. "Here, the divorce papers." Saying that with a smile, I handed John the divorce papers, which I had already signed. John looked baffled, unable to comprehend what was happening. "I had to act to make sure you didn't suddenly want to keep the children or refuse the divorce. You're okay with divorcing, right? Is that what this is about? Kids are noisy and troublesome anyway. And I wouldn't want to take them no matter what, so don't worry, haha. Are you sure about this? You won't regret it, if you promise me that. We can proceed with the divorce." "I won't regret it, haha. Oh, and please leave this house soon. Rose and I will live here, haha, and take care of the damages and child support for Rose's part, haha." Hearing this, I realized that John was under some misunderstanding, but I deliberately chose not to mention it. After the conversation, John filed the divorce papers and left to go on a trip with Rose. I called my part-time job to take some time off and then called my parents. When I asked if I could leave the apartment they bought for me, they said they were already looking for a new place for me and that they would sell this apartment. From that day on, I began packing my belongings to move to the new residence my parents had arranged. 2 days later, I received a massive number of calls from John, presumably back from his trip, but I didn't answer and sent him a message instead. I can't live here anymore. It's been put up for sale. I've sent your belongings to Rose's place to collect on delivery. They should arrive today. That's all I sent before turning off my phone. Afterward, I went again to the lawyer's office, where a friend of my father's works. I hinted to the lawyer that John might be misunderstanding something, probably because of something Rose told him. John seemed to think I would pay the damages and child support, and I wondered where he got that idea, but the answer became clear the next day. The next morning, when I turned on my phone, I was overwhelmed by the number of missed calls and messages. So with some trepidation, I called Rose. She answered after just one ring. "Hey, what's the meaning of this? Why did you sell John's house on your own? I don't understand." "Rose, what are you misunderstanding? That was the apartment my parents bought, and it was in my name, so it was mine." "I still don't get it. John said it was his house." "But well, you're going to pay the damages and child support, right? Then I'm fine with it. Give it to me quickly." "What are you talking about? You're the one who's supposed to pay. Can you not say things that make no sense, Rose?" Did I say something wrong? I want a new accessory, so I'd be happy if you could hurry up. I never thought you'd be so lacking in common sense, Rose. Did you also tell John those strange things? Talking to you gives me a headache, so if you have any questions, talk to the lawyer. I'm going to hang up now." "Wait, just a sec." Before she could finish, I decided that listening any further would surely not lead to understanding and resolved to leave everything to the lawyer. 2 days later, I could tell the lawyer was exhausted just from their voice. According to the lawyer, Rose seemed to believe that women are unconditionally entitled to alimony and child support. Naturally, as the offender, Rose is the one who should pay. And there was never any reason for me to give her money. After explaining this clearly, Rose refused to accept it, and for some reason started crying, making it impossible to have a rational conversation. When I apologized for dumping everything on the lawyer, they suggested it seems useless to say anything more, so let's just prepare the claim paperwork and push through. John also contacted me, but I simply replied, "I've left it to the lawyer, so please speak to them if you have anything to say," and ignored him from then on. Of course, as Rose is the payer, not the receiver, she had to pay me $19,000 in damages, and John decided to pay $23,000 in damages and a monthly child support payment. Because I was receiving a barrage of complaint calls and messages, I decided to change my phone and only gave my new number to a select few close friends. I received the damages payments in lump sums from both of them, and the child support has also been deposited smoothly so far. So I thought I could live peacefully from now on, but that was not to be. A year later, the doorbell rang, and when I checked the monitor, John was standing there in a half-mad state, so I decided to call the police before dealing with him. I opened the door and decided to ask John what he wanted. "So this is your new place, huh? I saw you before and followed you to this house. Hey, why don't we start over?" When asked about Rose, John started to speak with a face like he was about to cry. It seems John got married to Rose after that. Rose and John had a debt of about $43,000, but because Rose wanted to have a wedding, they took on more debt and had the ceremony. Due to the incident with me, hardly anyone showed up at the venue. and they ended up in significant debt. Despite this, as John had a high salary, he could have repaid the debt by working hard. But Rose's reckless spending worsened the situation. She borrowed money from dangerous places, splurged on luxury goods, and wasted money on hosts. The debt grew so much that John eventually took money from his company. But he was caught quickly, and now their debt has ballooned to $130,000. And now Rose has been taken somewhere by the debt collectors and hasn't returned. Which is why he came to me. Your parents are rich, and they could pay off my $130,000 easily. If you give it back, I might consider being with you again. I could pay it off, but I'll pause. Why? I'm offering to be with you again, and Oh, I get it. It's because of the kid, right? Let's have another one. Then you'd have to be with me, and your parents would have to pay, right? Let's do that. Stop it. Don't touch me. How can you even think that? Because I yelled out loud. My partner, who was checking inside the house, came out and restrained John. Soon after, the police arrived and took John away. But just to be sure, I went to file a restraining order that same day. That night, there was another visitor, and it was Rose, in a very disheveled state. I asked him to call the police, and I went outside to listen to Rose's story. Emily, I ended up here because this is where John's location was. We're best friends, right? Won't you help me? I'm being forced to work in the nightlife against my will. You brought this upon yourself. Serves you right. Why would you say such cruel things? I'll give back that man. Please help me. As Rose said this and began to cry, my partner, worried about me, peeked out from the entrance door. Rose stopped crying and, upon seeing my partner, tried to approach him and spoke to him. So, is this your boyfriend? I'm Rose, Emily's best friend. Wow, he's handsome. What do you do for a living? If you ever have trouble with Emily, feel free to reach out to me. Want to exchange contact information? Can you stop already? Are you after my boyfriend too? No, not at all. It's just that all the guys Emily dates are my type. And since Emily's parents are rich, it wouldn't hurt to share some guys with me, right? After hearing her words, he just gave a wry smile and went back inside the house. I stopped Rose from trying to follow him to the door, although I was dumbfounded by Rose's behavior. My current boyfriend was not someone who would fall for her temptations. That's enough, Rose. Thank you for everything so far. Please don't ever come to see us again. Goodbye. With those words, the police who had been called took Rose away just like they had with John. As she was being taken away by the police, Rose threw a violent fit and injured one of the officers, which led to her being charged with obstruction of justice on top of her prior record, resulting in her arrest. Weeks later, despite the restraining order, John came crying. You and I are destined to be together. Just give up and come back to me. Let's raise our children together, please. Or if not that, could you just lend me some money? Although his words over the intercom sent shivers down my spine. My partner took care of handling John for me. We had already called the police. And once again, John was taken away in a patrol car. When John got into the patrol car, our 1.5-year-old daughter said to him, Yucky, germ man, bye-bye. I thought I should say this now because we won't see each other again. It's too bad, isn't it? The fish you let go was too big for you. Let me tell you about my total assets. My parents are rich, but I have $5,900,000. We're moving abroad soon, so don't come to that house anymore because we won't be there. Goodbye. Whether he was shocked by my daughter's words or mine, John never came to visit again. However, later on, there was just one letter from John in the mailbox. The letter was a plea to get back together and a request for money. And if I were to give a brief introduction, it said something like this. I will always love Emily. Won't you break up with that guy and be with me instead? Isn't the daughter mine? Plus, the $590 million you talked about that day was just to get my attention, right? I know, such an amount can't be real. I love you, Emily. I believe you will come back to me, and I'm waiting for your contact. Oh, and at worst, you can just give the daughter to that man and come back by yourself. This was the kind of text that was written over 3 pages. Without any intention to contact him, I simply threw the letter in the trash. After that letter, there was no further contact, and he didn't come to the house either. Months of peaceful daily life passed, and it's been decided that my daughter, my partner, and I will move overseas to be with my parents, so we are heading to the airport. My partner is a senior colleague I met at my part-time job. My daughter is very fond of him and follows him around like he's her real father. He's kind and serious, the exact opposite of John. Ever since I started working part-time, he's been taking care of me. I thought he was married and was about to give up, but when he found out I was divorced, he approached me after consulting with my parents. They said I should date him, and if it didn't work out, then we could just break up. But as we dated, I found myself more and more attracted to him. He's willing to come with us overseas, and we're in a relationship with the intention of marriage. I'm secretly hoping that now, with my parents nearby and living with him and my daughter, we can all live happily ever after.
I threw out your stuff because it was in the way. Just as I thought, it was Lisa's doing. All my belongings, including clothes and cosmetics, were gone. Luckily, I had my PC with me when I went out, so it was safe. But honestly, this was too much, and I was furious. Daniel was smirking alongside Lisa. It was clear that Lisa started this, and Daniel had helped her. Why are you just standing there? If you need something, why not pick it up? Seriously, just leave the house? You're so annoying, old lady. I had always let her have her way since she's his stepdaughter. I never complained about Daniel's way of raising her. But being treated with such arrogance from the beginning, ignored for a whole year, and now having all my things thrown out, anyone would be angry. They don't know what happens when I get angry, how pitiful they are. Our divorce is inevitable. I doubt Lisa will make it to college, and Daniel, with all his hobbies, will probably get stressed out when he can't pursue them anymore. They might not even have a place to live anymore. It'll be interesting to see what they do. I see. I'm just a nuisance to you all. Fine, I hope you'll regret it when bad things happen. Don't come crawling back to me. Whether you cry or get angry, it has nothing to do with me. My name is Catherine Miller. I'm 38 years old and own a house. I don't like being questioned about my job, so I say I've renovated my family home to live in. I used to invest, but after switching to high-risk, high-return stocks, my assets have consistently grown. My father was into investing and stocks, and he taught me everything from an early age. Even though I'm self-taught, I believe I'm good at it. I met my husband, Daniel, when he joined the gym I've been attending for years. We started talking because we wore the same brand of sportswear. Our meetings became more frequent, and we started going out more often. Daniel had many hobbies like golf, cars, fishing, and was knowledgeable about them. So I was never bored with him. When he proposed dating, this conversation took place. From the moment I met you, I couldn't stop thinking about you. I want to be with you with marriage in mind. Yes, gladly. I felt the same way, so I'm happy. There's something I need to tell you. What is it? I'm divorced. My ex-wife didn't understand my hobbies and always criticized them. We divorced because of that. We have a daughter who now lives with my parents. I was worried you wouldn't want to be with me if I told you. Will you still accept me? Well, if we're going to be a family, I better get along with your daughter. Does that mean I don't care about any of that? My feelings for you won't change. And so, we began dating. Back then, Daniel's daughter, Lisa, was in the 6th grade. She was a bright, friendly child who always greeted me with a smile. It's Catherine. I'm so happy to see you. I love shopping for clothes with you. Oh, Lisa, you're so adorable. I feel like buying you something. You two seem to have a lot of fun. Include me too. Ha ha ha. Dad's getting jealous. True. Daniel is always so jealous. I always thought Lisa was fond of me. I had bought various clothes that suited Lisa, and every time I visited, I brought a cake as a gift, which she seemed to really enjoy. Then one day, during dinner, Lisa casually mentioned, "It would be more fun if Catherine Miller was with us every day." That comment led to a marriage proposal from Daniel. This happened around 2 years after we started dating. When Lisa advanced to the 9th grade, given that I was living alone in a single-family home, both of them basically moved in with me. At that time, I hadn't discussed how I earned my money, only telling Daniel that I was a remote worker. I once told a past boyfriend in detail about my earnings. Not long after that, he began to leech off me, making it difficult to break up. I had intended to discuss my earnings after getting married, but time flew, and I completely forgot. After living together for a little over a year, and as Lisa was nearing the end of her first year in high school, their attitudes began to change noticeably. Daniel's take-home pay was around $2,700, but since we owned the house, he used to contribute around $1,000 for household expenses. However, now he only contributes $200, spending the rest on himself and Lisa. And when that's not enough, they both ask me for more. They spend money on various hobbies. Their spending was so extravagant that one day, I decided to address it. "Daniel, can we talk now? I have to play a game, so make it quick." "About the money with Lisa? Aren't you both spending too much? First, you're buying Lisa all these branded and expensive things even though she's just a high school freshman. How much allowance are you giving her? And Daniel, you have many hobbies, which is fine, but aren't you overspending? You're also spending on games. Why not sell things you don't use?" How much was I giving Lisa? Maybe around $1,000. I want to buy her things she wants, and she says there are many places she wants to go. Lisa's my precious daughter, and don't interfere with my hobbies. Whatever you say, I won't listen. I work hard every day to feed you both. So what? I can't even have hobbies? What? You're giving away $1,000 every month. What on earth are you thinking? Wait, are you telling me that you're spending the whole $1,000 every month and then asking me for more pocket money? I'll have to discuss this with Lisa, but that's a conversation for later. The issue isn't about you needing to give up your hobbies. It's about you spending way too much money. Do you even realize how much you're contributing to our household expenses? It's just $200. Just $200. How do you expect us to live on that? Don't be too harsh on Lisa, okay? It's not fair to her. So what if I spend a lot? It's my hard-earned money. I'm the kind of person who gets into things head first, so it can't be helped. I'm contributing $200. Isn't that enough? Your house is paid off, so it's not like we have big expenses. Plus, you work too, right? We've been getting by just fine until now, so stop nagging. My hard-earned money, I get that, but there has to be a limit, right? Just because the house is paid off doesn't mean there aren't expenses like taxes. The utility bills alone are more than $200. Yes, I work too, but the issue here is that you're overspending. At my parents' place, $200 was enough. If it's not enough, you can cover the rest, right? Your parents are still working, aren't they? And their house is smaller. We have to pay more because of the size difference. You said something about my parents' house being small, didn't you? Enough of that. Just go away. I don't want to hear it anymore. You're such a pain, honestly. No, I wasn't criticizing your parents' house. It all started when you brought up the issue of money. What do you mean by a pain? Before I could continue, Daniel put on his headphones and started playing his game, ending our conversation. I still needed to talk to Lisa, but she was often out late, making it difficult to have a serious discussion. Soon after, Lisa began her second year of high school due to bad weather. All three of us were home. I suggested we have a family meeting. After convincing the visibly reluctant pair, we began our discussion in the living room. Lisa, Daniel told me you're getting an allowance of $1,000. And yet, you still ask me for money every month. What are you spending it all on? And you're out too late too often. You need to be more responsible. So annoying. Why are you butting in when you're not even my real mom? What I do is my business. Leave me alone. I may not be your biological mother, but right now, I am your mother. If you continue to spend money this way, you'll face problems in the future. I can't just stand by and watch. If you don't clearly explain why you need so much money, I won't give you any more. So annoying. I have many things I want. There are outings and hangouts. Can't you just stay out of it, right? Even high school students have their own circle of friends. Don't be too nagging. I understand you have social commitments. And I get that it's the age when you want branded stuff, but it's about the amount of money. Seriously, what's your deal? Everyone else gets this much. It's normal, you know. Things were different in your era, old lady, LOL. Back then, you used to buy me cakes and whatever I wanted without me asking. Pretending to be all motherly now is just hilarious. Wait, did you just call me old lady? What kind of language is that? I am your mother. So if something is wrong, I should point it out, right? I got a bit heated and responded strongly. Perhaps she didn't like that, because Lisa clicked her tongue in annoyance and raised her voice. DCH, seriously, this is just tiresome. I thought playing Happy Family would get me anything I wanted. Why are you acting so high and mighty? From now on, think of me as if I don't exist and stay out of my business. Wait, Lisa, Catherine, that's enough. You went too far. Apologize to Lisa. Me? Am I the bad one? What's this playing family you're talking about? Sigh. I thought you'd be easy to handle, but maybe I was wrong. Just apologize, okay? I was confused. I hadn't realized Daniel felt that way about me. From the next day, Lisa truly started ignoring me. Daniel messaged me in the morning saying, "Until you apologize to Lisa, I'll only speak to you when necessary." Living like this, I began to question the purpose of our being together and thought about getting a divorce. About a year passed since Lisa started ignoring me. She was in her 3rd year of high school. Daniel and Lisa continued to spend recklessly. Even if I stopped giving them money, they withdrew from the account meant for utilities and other bills. I was putting in nearly $2,000 each month, but they withdrew it all. This situation persisted, leading me to make a decision and discuss it with Daniel. Daniel, can we talk? What is it? Finally decided to apologize to Lisa? No, I don't see the point of us being together anymore. Please leave this house. What? What are you talking about? Did you hit your head? No, I'm serious. All right. Let me think about it. I have to tell Lisa too. I'm giving you 3 days. I'll be out for work and we'll head to the gym afterward. Please pack your things and leave during that time. 3 days, huh? I wasn't sure if he took me seriously, but I had said my piece. I believed they'd want to move out anyway. 3 days later, I spent some time in a cafe and then worked out at the gym before heading home. Seeing their shoes still there, I thought they hadn't left. I opened the shoe cabinet, only to be shocked. My heels, pumps, and boots, which should have been there, were gone. I had a sinking feeling and quickly went to my room. It was empty. I couldn't find any of my belongings, not even a single accessory. Rushing to the living room, I found Lisa and Daniel, both smirking. Lisa, speaking to me after a year, said, "Oh, you're back. Why are you so flustered? What are you thinking?" "My belongings. Your stuff was in the way, so I threw it out." It was as I suspected. It was Lisa's doing. All my belongings, including my clothes and cosmetics, were gone. Thankfully, since I had taken my PC out with me, it wasn't harmed. But this has made me incredibly angry. Daniel was smirking along with Lisa. Lisa was the mastermind, and Daniel had merely assisted her. What's with that blank face? If you need something so much, why don't you pick it up yourself? Actually, why don't you just leave the house? You're such a nuisance, old lady. I see. I'm just an inconvenience to you, aren't I? Fine, I hope both of you face the consequences of your actions. And don't come crawling back to me later. Whether you cry or get angry, I don't care anymore. I hope you regret it. Haha, regret? Why would we cling to an old lady like you? Exactly. Like Lisa said, remember, we did you a favor by marrying you. You should be grateful for that. We won't come crawling back to you, crying. With that, I took whatever belongings I had left and headed to a business hotel. Thankfully, they had a room available, so I stayed there for the night. Just watch, I thought as I went about my tasks. A month was about to pass when, one day, my phone rang loudly. The caller ID showed it was Daniel. I had anticipated this call. It was so predictable that I almost laughed. I waited a moment before answering Daniel's call. Hey, Catherine, where the hell are you? Enough of this. Come home now. Well, I thought you said I was a nuisance of an old lady? Enough already. If you've reflected on things, come back and we'll live together again. Living together again? You have a funny sense of humor. Why don't you quickly sign the divorce papers I put in the mailbox? Mailbox. Divorce papers. What are you talking about? Sigh. Haven't you checked the mailbox? Why don't you check it now? Wait right there. He probably want to check the mailbox. I could hear footsteps over the phone. So I decided to wait for him. After a while, I heard the sound of him running back, clearly flustered. Catherine, there are bills for the electricity. What's with this amount? But the lights are on, and the hot water's working. Did they send this even after I paid? Daniel, you really don't know anything, do you? Our house is fully electric. That's the amount every month. Also, if they've sent a notice, the due date is the end of this month, right? You better make sure you pay it on time. I haven't been living there, so I didn't pay. And I changed the account to deduct the payments to yours. Just so you know, electricity doesn't get cut off immediately if you don't pay. You didn't even know that? What? You changed the account details without telling me. There's no money in my account for them to deduct from. Please, pay for it. I'm broke until the next payday. Why should I? Why do I have to pay for you guys? Aren't you getting your mobile bills soon? Wait, you didn't change the mobile account details to mine, did you? Yes. Both yours and Lisa's bills will be deducted from your account. Lisa's too. How much is it all going to be? You probably don't know. You spend on games. And Lisa shops with payment methods that get billed with the phone bill. Altogether, it's about $2,500 every month. What? That much? I haven't spent that much on games. On the months you don't, Lisa buys accessories and other things. You're spending at least $800 every month, aren't you? Don't you realize? By the way, mine is just a little over $100. Well, I can't do this. I can't pay. Daniel, should I teach you a lesson? What? Every month, when I combine the allowance I've been giving you, the total payment amounts to about $8,000. Did you know? It includes house taxes, utility bills, your car loan, mobile charges, money spent on your hobbies, the money I was giving to Lisa, and various other things. That's roughly how much it costs. Wait, what? What did you just say? $8,000? There's no way that's possible, but it is. That's why I got mad about your overspending, remember? There were times when it even exceeded $10,000. Maybe when Lisa bought those 3 brand bags. Well, I was able to pay for it because of me. Hold on, Lisa was spending that much. I couldn't possibly afford that. Wait, you were the one who could afford it. What do you mean by that? You never really knew about my job, did you? Anyway, I have some business at that house soon. I'll explain then. You're coming back. Thank God. Please come back soon. What? What are you talking about? This time. Figure out the payment on your own. I abruptly hung up the phone. Feeling somewhat relieved, I lounged around when the phone rang again. Checking the caller, I quickly answered. Having settled on a date, I left a message. I told Daniel that I'd be coming over in a week, and then muted all notifications except for his. A week later, when I arrived, Daniel had taken a day off from work and was waiting for me. I had been contemplating whether to tell him directly about my work or not. But I decided I'd tell him when I was leaving, just in case. I've been waiting. Who are those men with you? Are they all your affairs? No, they're not. They're here to look at the house. Why? I'll tell you everything when I leave. For now, what did you do about the payment? And the divorce papers. I borrowed money from my parents. Can you help from next month? We're not getting divorced. No, we're divorcing. I won't be paying. Why? Then why did you come back? To get your signature on the divorce papers and to inspect the house. I told you, I won't sign the divorce papers. And what inspection? Forget about the inspection for now. If you don't sign, Lisa will be mad. If you don't want Lisa to hate you, sign the papers. Or should I consult a lawyer and ask you to repay all the money I've spent on you? All right. Oh, got scared when you heard lawyer, did you? I just don't want Lisa to hate me. And if you're going to charge me for what I used, I might as well agree to the divorce. But let's live together here. What? No. The men who had come with me to inspect the house then returned. Actually, they were from a demolition company. I got his signature on the divorce papers and planned to tell him the truth as I left. By the way, you'll need to move out of this house soon. What? Why? Because I built this house. What? I thought you just renovated your ancestral home. I wasn't informed about this. No, that's not it. I was thinking of telling you once we built more trust. But you showed your true colors before that. So, you earn a lot, Catherine. You never mentioned a house mortgage. I've already paid off the house mortgage. Let's discuss this some other time. For now, I want to go and submit the divorce papers. If you're earning that much, then forget the divorce. Give that back. As Daniel lunged to snatch the divorce papers, the sturdy men from the demolition company easily restrained him. They took me in their vehicle to the city hall. The divorce papers were successfully processed. The next day, I received several calls from Daniel. I hadn't told him about my work, so he must be curious. I answered, and it wasn't Daniel but Lisa on the line, though it seemed Daniel was also there, commenting in the background. Hey, what are you thinking? Didn't you tell my dad to leave? You need to explain to me. Good morning, Lisa. That's right. Please leave, because this is the house I bought. What? My dad only renovated your family home, but he said you easily took over. He said that. Thanks for letting me know. Lisa, don't say unnecessary things. Catherine, how could you make such huge payments? I was going to tell you about it. I'm an investor, and I've been doing stocks for the past few years. I know someone who tried and didn't make any money. If they couldn't do it, there's no way you could. I can, actually. My father is also an investor and quite successful. He's currently living abroad. So, that's why the marriage introduction was remote, correct? There's a pandemic going on there. And he can't return to the US right now. Did you, get any money from your parents? Only at first. I borrowed it but was able to repay it quickly. Would you like to know my total assets? Stop boasting and just tell us. It's probably just $100,000, right? No, you're off by a few digits. Don't tell me. $1 million. Close. It's $9 million. What? The fish you let go was too big for you two to handle, wasn't it? Wait a second. Are you kidding? That's a lie. There's no way you earn that much. If you think it's a lie, then so be it. I won't deal with you two anymore. Wait, Catherine. Let's get back together. Please, I'm begging you. Well then, goodbye. She then hung up the phone, blocked his number, and felt liberated as she searched for a new home. A few days later, she received a call from an unknown number. It was Daniel, using his work phone. I didn't know his company's mobile phone number. Catherine, wait, don't hang up. Just listen. What do you want? The demolition crew is here to tear down the house. They're telling us to leave. Can you help? Where are you right now? We'll come to you. It's impossible. Goodbye. Wait, Mom. It's me, Lisa. I regret what I said. I'm sorry. I want to live with you again. Lisa, I'm not your mother anymore. Don't come to me now. It's my fault. Please marry my dad again. If not, I won't be able to go to college. And my phone will be cut off soon. So, I'll be good. That's sad. But remember, you rejected me when I tried to be your mother. Life isn't always kind. Maybe give up on college for now and work? Or get a scholarship. I don't want a scholarship. My life as a college girl will be, I hate this. Getting angry won't change anything. Do your best with your father. Goodbye. I blocked that number too and changed my own number soon after. About 3 months later, through a mutual gym friend, I heard that Daniel had neither time nor money for hobbies and was working tirelessly to repay the money he borrowed from his parents. I thought I saw Lisu in the city during a night out with friends. But they were no longer any concern of hers. They got what they deserved. After reporting everything to my parents, they suggested I live with them abroad. I'm planning to leave the US soon, so I probably won't be involved with those people anymore. Let's look forward to meeting wonderful people over there. I blew Grandpa's $130,000 on a spree. After the funeral service for my husband ended, There was a brief moment of relief. But then John's voice, cool and composed, echoed throughout the venue. The gathered relatives froze in place. All eyes were on John. "What do you mean, $130,000? I knew John, the wandering son, was careless with money. But the amount was so staggering that it took me by surprise. You see, I've had my eye on this new car for a while. It was hard to get, and I waited 3 months for it after ordering. Finally got my hands on it. It's great that the old man kicked the bucket." Before anyone noticed, John was showing off the bank book and seal for the insurance money he had received, laughing arrogantly. At first, I was filled with anger, but seeing the passbook John was holding, I couldn't help but start laughing from the pit of my stomach. My condolences. Honestly, I'm saved by having such a stupid son. There I was, smirking to myself. My name is Emily. I'm a 50-year-old housewife who works part-time as a florist. I live with my husband Mike, and John, Mike's son from his previous marriage. Mike had been married once before, and John was a child from that marriage. Sadly, Mike and I were unable to have children, so I resolved to raise John, my stepson, as my own. When I first met John, he was only 5 years old. At first, he was reluctant to open up to me, his new mother, but after living together for a year, he warmed up to me, and I'll never forget the day he bashfully called me Mom. However, as John grew up and entered adolescence, he began to avoid me and my husband. I accepted it with a big heart, thinking it happens in every household. But John's rebellious phase didn't end quickly. On top of that, once he became a high school student, he started hanging out with the notorious delinquents at school and quickly became hardened. The endearing John who once called me Mom for the first time was nowhere to be found, replaced by a foolish son who would stay out late every night, get picked up by the police, and make my husband furious. In an attempt to remedy the situation, my husband and I tried to get him into a reputable private university so he could at least land a decent job. However, the result was disastrous, and he ended up going to a university commonly referred to as a bottom-tier school. Even though it was a bottom-tier university, I thought that if he made an effort, he could still get employed in a decent job after graduation. But our wayward son remained unchanged, even as a university student. His world expanded to include gambling on horses and pachinko, and we were at our wits' end. I had hoped that this foolish son of ours might get a job and leave home in a few years. But it was naive of me. John messed around and failed so many university courses that he was quickly determined to repeat a year. Now a sophomore, being held back was disheartening. And I was worried about how many more years he would have to attend university. Misfortune often comes in waves, and on the very day John's repeat year was decided, my husband collapsed at work. I was shocked when I received the call. I was working at the florist at the time, but I hurriedly left and rushed to the hospital. My husband was undergoing treatment, and I had to wait helplessly for several hours. I had also contacted John, expecting him to arrive soon, but there was no sign of him. Eventually, the doctor came to me and explained my husband's condition. We've managed to save his life. But your husband has stage 4 pancreatic cancer. It's terminal. That can't be. I was at a loss for words when the doctor told me terminal cancer. Fortunately, we had never had any health issues and had not struggled with illness before. And yet, now we were facing terminal cancer. The doctor then began to discuss future treatment options. It seemed that the choice would be between hospitalization to extend his life as much as possible with treatment, or to opt for palliative care at home to spend the remaining time peacefully. I wanted to be with my husband as long as possible, but I knew the treatment would come with pain. I couldn't strongly recommend treatment and say, please go through with it. I decided to leave all decisions to my husband. After a while, my husband woke up and received the same explanation from the doctor. He looked bewildered as he tried to accept the misfortune that had befallen him. But eventually, he spoke with a heavy voice. I'm going home. I want to spend the remaining time quietly with Emily. Somehow, I had anticipated that my husband might say that. It was hard, but I decided to respect my husband's wishes and go home with him. It must be even harder for my husband than for me. That day, we had our meal in silence, and my husband spent the whole time gazing out the window. John didn't come home that day, and it wasn't until the next morning that he returned, hungover. My head is killing me. Isn't there any food? John, that's late. What were you doing yesterday? I contacted you so many times. I was deeply angered by John, who had not worried about his critically ill father and had only now come home. Moreover, his first concern upon returning wasn't about his father's welfare, but about his meal. He is a foolish son. It's too pitiful for my husband. Contacts. You mean about the old man? So, when's he gonna kick the bucket? John. I scolded John sharply for uttering such words as kick the bucket regarding his father. Unbelievable. How can he say such a thing now? Although my husband was sleeping in the room, our conversation might not be unheard. I felt dizzy at the thought that he might already be awake and could have heard John's thoughtless remark. What's the big deal, getting all worked up? It's an illness, right? Can't help it. It's the old man's fault for not noticing it. Pancreatic cancer is something that's not noticed until it progresses. Why can't you show some consideration? Anyway, I won't forgive you if you say anything unnecessary in front of your father. Yeah, I'll be careful. John's response to my caution was nonchalant, not taking it seriously at all. I sighed deeply. Isn't my husband John's only close relative? Despite not being particularly strict with John's upbringing, I can't understand why he holds such resentment towards him. Well, to John, not just my husband, but also I must be an unwelcome presence. He just dislikes being directed by adults. For him, the happiest time is when he's fooling around with his incompetent friends. John's future is a concern, but now the time left with my husband is more important. To live without regrets in the future, I must cherish every day with my husband. John comes after that, I kept telling myself. As expected, my husband quit his job and started spending all day at home. I continued my part-time job, but I reduced my hours to spend as much time as possible with my husband. I thought staying inside all the time would be suffocating, so I occasionally took my husband out for a walk on the riverbank in his wheelchair. Even though he rapidly lost weight and looked visibly ill, he remained my beloved husband. Emily, thank you. I know it's been tough with John and all. Putting up with my selfishness. I'm grateful. Stop it. I'm just doing what any wife would naturally do. When my usually reticent husband said that while looking at the river, I almost burst into tears. Still, I've been happy. I know John can be difficult, but I'll do anything I can to help you. My husband probably felt remorse about leaving John in my care by passing away first. To me, John is as good as my son, so I don't feel burdened. But I understood his worry about our self-centered son. After that, we continued our walk in silence and returned home. Where have you two been? Isn't it a bit much for someone with terminal cancer to be strolling around? And make me some food, quick! Despite not coming home some days, when he does return at a decent hour, this is what we get. Doesn't a university student feel embarrassed demanding, "Make me food"? If he wants to eat, he should cook for himself. Thinking this bitterly, I start cooking without raising my voice in front of my husband. From that day on, my husband spent his days locked in the bedroom, appearing to work on something desperately. Occasionally, when I peeked in, he was fervently writing something. Perhaps he was writing letters to old friends. I closed the door gently so as not to disturb him. 3 months later, my husband passed away. Though I was prepared, I couldn't believe he was gone just a few months after falling ill, and I struggled to accept it. In my grief, I prepared for my husband's funeral. To outsiders, I must have looked like a ghost with a pale face. I never imagined losing my husband would hit me this hard. Even then, John's arrogant attitude remained unchanged. When my husband passed away, John said just one thing. "Humph, he's finally kicked the bucket, huh?" Always nagging me like a fussy old aunt. That's not good. This isn't allowed. Thanks to him, I couldn't even get video games, was left behind by my classmates, and couldn't go on trips. He was such a bother, that old stiff. What a thing to say about your father who has just passed away. Although I was struck by despair, my anger towards John was growing. Hey, John, how can you say such things? Don't you feel sorry for your father? He was just trying to make you into a decent human being by forbidding those things. Apologize right now. Apologize to a dead man. How can I do something so nonsensical? John spat out those words with a rough tone. I felt utterly sad. As time went on, John didn't show any sign of mourning for our father, who had passed away. Instead, he just coldly watched me prepare for the funeral. During the funeral, John seemed distant, just gazing at our father's portrait. Even when the funeral attendees came to greet John and me, John just nonchalantly responded with "yay, yeah," leaving the visitors taken aback. I wished he would at least act properly while others were watching. But my hopes were in vain, and the guest stares towards John were painfully piercing. Emily, you must be tired. It's been tough, hasn't it? After we got through the wake and the funeral, I finally took a breath of relief. The relatives seemed tired as well, but they offered me words of consolation. I bowed to each one of them, expressing my gratitude. Afterward, we gathered in another room of the funeral hall and were served boxed lunches, leading us to a lunch break. The previously heavy atmosphere seemed to lighten up a bit as everyone started sharing memories of my husband over lunch. Then, there was someone sitting on a chair with an exceptionally large sigh. It was John. His inappropriate behavior drew everyone's eyes to him. John, please behave a little better. Shut up. I'm tired. Besides, now that all the troublesome stuff is over, let me indulge in this feeling. It's finally a good mood. I stared at John, who continued to say things that didn't fit the occasion, as if looking at an incomprehensible creature. A good mood. Yay, that's right. You see, I was at a loss for words with what John stretched and said next. I blew $130,000 of the old man's money on a spree. John's nonchalant voice echoed through the venue after the funeral ended, and I could only feel a moment's peace before being shaken again. The relatives gathered around were stunned. All eyes turned to John. $130,000. What does that mean? The prodigal son John's lack of financial restraint was known, but the amount mentioned was shockingly large. You see, I had my eye on this new car for a while. It was hard to get, and I had to wait 3 months after ordering it. Finally got it. Good thing the old man kicked the bucket. John, at some point, started showing off the bank book and seal for his father's insurance money, laughing haughtily. 3 months ago was exactly when the husband was diagnosed with cancer. Since then, John had decided to splurge with his father's money. At first, I was filled with rage, but seeing the bank book John was holding, laughter welled up from the pit of my stomach. My condolences. Haha. Indeed, it was good to have such a foolish son. I smirked to myself at the scene. The new car. You bought it on a loan, right? Yeah, that's right. I knew the insurance money would be deposited here, so I signed the contract in advance. Luckily, he died on time. Plus, I've been having fun with the old man's card. Haha. The withdrawal hasn't happened yet, but with the insurance money, it should be fine, right? Am I not smart? John had stolen his father's credit card before his father passed away and had been using it to have fun. He must have sensed that his father wouldn't live much longer, assuming that by the time the next month's credit card withdrawal was due, his father would have passed away. As John predicted, his father passed away shortly after he started using the credit card. Everything went according to John's plan. With free money in hand, he kept laughing loudly. But I was staring at the bank book in John's hand. That bank book was for our household joint account, which we used to save for living expenses. John must have known this and stolen the bank book. The seal he held was indeed mine, registered for that account. Certainly, the insurance money had been deposited into that account the day before yesterday. But John was unaware of a crucial fact. Unfortunately for you, the insurance money hasn't been deposited into that account. Huh? What are you talking about? John, thinking I suddenly started saying something absurd, snorted and flipped through the bank book. He showed me the print of the date from the day before yesterday and the amount of the insurance money. Look, the insurance money has been deposited right here. Are you blind? John was scoffing in a mocking tone. But I had long known that the insurance money had been recorded in the bank book. After all, I was the one who processed the insurance claim. So there was no way I could forget about it. No matter how busy I was after my husband passed away. I know without looking. But unfortunately, that account no longer has the insurance money in it. Huh. As expected, John's mouth hung open in shock, just like in a painting. No, that can't be right. It's printed right here. Yes, it was there until the day before yesterday. But yesterday, I transferred the insurance money to a different account. Transferred? What? Startled, John leaned back and took another look at the bank book in his hand. Indeed, it only recorded that the insurance money had been deposited the day before yesterday. Of course, I hadn't recorded the transaction in the bank book when I transferred the money from that account to another yesterday. It was good that I had moved the insurance money earlier, anticipating such an event. Considering John's irresponsibility with money, it wasn't strange that he was eyeing his father's insurance money. Just as I predicted, John had fallen right into the trap. This has got to be a lie. The insurance money should be in this account. If you think it's a lie, go to the bank and update your bank book now. I think you'll find that what I'm saying is correct. What the? John seemed to realize that what I was saying was true, given my overly confident tone. Why would you do something like this? That should be my line. Why would you even think of stealing your father's hard-earned money? That old man has been nothing but a nuisance to me. He should be showing me gratitude for once in his life. The relatives were speechless and dumbfounded as John kicked the chair next to him with a thud. I sighed and looked at John. The time had come for me to settle the long-standing grudge. A nuisance? Who's the nuisance here? Do you have any idea how much your father and I worried about you? We worked hard to save money for your education. And yet, you squandered your time at university and turned out to be such a fool. Shut up. The scene was chaotic with John raging and myself furious. The relatives seemed to have no choice but to watch our intense confrontation from a distance, waiting for a resolution. Oh, by the way, you mentioned earlier that you used your father's credit card, didn't you? So what if I did? You should expect to pay off all that money yourself. Don't you know? The unpaid balance on a deceased person's credit card has to be inherited by the heirs. Here is your father's will. We'll have it looked at in family court. Depending on what it says, since you spent the money, it's only natural you should pay it back. John's face turned pale. He started to tremble, speechless in the face of the reality thrust upon him. To use your husband's credit card without knowing such a thing, How naive. I was looking forward to going to family court the next day. The next day, I gathered the necessary documents and filed a request for the probate of the will at the family court. It was tough to prepare everything in one day, but I was eager to learn the contents of the will as soon as possible. A few days later, when the date for the probate was set, John and I headed to the family court together. John had been downcast, but he was now boasting. Humph, the old man has assets. I'll inherit those and can pay off the debt in no time. Indeed, as John said, my husband was what you'd call a wealthy man, with assets worth up to $7,900,000. There were countless properties and apartments he owned. Knowing this, John probably intended to steal his father's money. I was furious at how lazy he usually was. I don't know what my husband wrote in his will, but I want John to receive the retribution he deserves. When we arrived at the family court, the official opened the envelope containing the will. It was just the two of us present, and the tension in the room was palpable. The testator, Mike Tsuji, by this will decrees as follows. Article 1. I bequeath the following properties to my wife, Amelie. The executor read out the details of the largest mansions, lands, and numerous stocks my husband owned. John might not understand just by hearing the names and addresses, but I had a good grasp of which mansions and lands they were. The stocks are all from major companies, and the prospects of profit are high. This means that most of my husband's assets will be inherited by me, even after deducting inheritance tax. It's an amount that means I won't have to work for the rest of my life. Article 2. Bestow the following properties to the eldest son, John. John, upon hearing about the inheritance, John shouted yes and struck a victory pose, but I just smirked to myself. Furthermore, the eldest son, John, will also inherit all of the following financial debts. John's actions came to an abrupt halt as the executor read out the debts. Debts? I didn't hear anything about that. Well, even your father had debts. Plus, the money spent from the credit cards you used counts as debt too. What? What does that mean? It seems John finally realized the seriousness of the situation. He stood up, ready to confront the executor reading the will. Lower your voice, please. How can I stay quiet? Debts. Why do I have to deal with them? But the will said I'd get lands and mansions too, right? I can offset it with those, can't I? Indeed, the will stated that John would inherit not just debts, but also properties. But I knew upon hearing the addresses of the lands and mansions, all the properties John was to inherit were dilapidated mansions, worthless lands in the countryside that wouldn't amount to any money. On a walk before my husband passed away, he said he'd do anything he could for me. He must have been referring to this will. He left almost all his assets to me, leaving John with worthless properties and debts. Some might see it as cruel parenting, but considering what John has done until now, it's a small price. Unfortunately, the lands and mansions you're inheriting are worthless. I doubt selling them would even dent the debts, right? What? Are you kidding me? What are you going to do about this? John slammed the table. I had the executor who finished reading the will leave the room. What am I going to do? This is your responsibility. It's the result of you lazing around and recklessly spending your father's money. Lamenting now is too late. Faced with my valid argument, John showed a look as if struck by a revelation. It seemed he finally understood the foolishness of his actions. And when I thought he would react, to my surprise, he knelt and clung to my legs. Mom, please, I beg you, help me. If I use the assets you inherited, I can pay back my debts right away, right? Please, you're all I have left, Mom. I looked down on John, who only clung to me pathetically at times like this, with a cold gaze. The John who first called me Mom felt like a completely different person. Even if he calls me Mom, I won't be deceived. Who do you think your mother is? You've defied your father time and again. And now it's too late to come crawling back. You are no longer my son. Whether there's a blood relation or not doesn't matter. I don't acknowledge you as my son. If you understand, then never come back to me again. John, crushed by despair, slumped down and cowered on the spot. I left briskly, pausing by his side. I decided to cut ties with John. I swore it in my heart. John didn't return home after that. It couldn't be helped after such a fight. I ended up alone in the house, with both my husband and John gone. But being with John would have only made things harder, so now I'm satisfied being alone. Thank you for the will. I bowed deeply in front of my husband's portrait. I was filled with loneliness without him, but thanks to the property he left me, I could live the rest of my life without any hardships. It was truly a blessing. I decided to continue working part-time at the florist. If I did nothing, my heart would grow heavy. In the end, I'm glad I kept working. Later on, I heard that John started living in the rundown apartment he inherited from his father. It's located far from the downtown area, making his commute to school over an hour each way. To pay off a debt of $130,000, he had to work part-time jobs. And with the commute from school, he seemingly had no time left to hang out with friends. A few hours of part-time work each day wasn't enough, so he was also working late into the night. No doubt he's leading a very exhausting life, but I was not inclined to help him. It's all the result of his actions. Right now, I can't think of John as my son. Perhaps one day, if John changes his heart and comes before me, I might feel inclined to help him. Until then, I plan to enjoy my life alone while mourning my husband's death.
A free trip to Hawaii is the best. It's all thanks to you, working your butt off. My husband sees me as nothing more than a cash cow. What could he possibly be thinking, calling me just to say this? What are you talking about? Are you in Hawaii right now? My husband replied with a mocking tone. That's right. You just save up all the money without ever spending it. So I felt sorry for your money and decided to spend it for you. I could hear a woman's voice over the phone.
Hey.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks to your money, our trip to Hawaii is going to be memorable. There's nothing better than a free trip. Her voice was sickly sweet. Did you steal my credit card? I asked my husband, holding back my anger.
Yeah.
That's right, you're just a boring woman who saves money. Since I was planning to divorce you soon anyway, I thought I'd make good use of the money you saved up. And if I'm going to Hawaii, it might as well be with a hot woman, right? That's why I have a great woman by my side. She's grateful to be having a good time on your dime. I kept my anger at bay as much as possible and just said, I see, and hung up the phone. I won't let it end like this. I immediately took measures. When will my husband and his accomplice notice my countermeasures? What will my husband do with his mistress when they do? The very thought brings a smile to my face. My name is Emily Tanabe. I'm 52 years old. Since graduating from high school, I've been working at a local bank all my life. Thanks to that, my annual income exceeds $33,000, and though slowly, I have been saving up too. My husband's name is John Tanabe, and he is 54 years old. His annual income is quite a lot at $53,000, but he is incredibly careless with money, always complaining about being broke before payday. We have a daughter named Rose, but she has already moved out. Things were better when our daughter was still home. Now, it's just my husband and me, and I feel like I'm suffocating. My husband is truly reckless with money. He drinks almost every day. It seems he often has female company when he drinks. Once, I asked him to reconsider his extravagant spending and his interactions with other women. At that time, he became furious, and both our daughter and I were quite shocked. Who do you think allows us to lead this life? You are living off the money I earn. How I spend my money is none of your business, right? I don't care if we get divorced. Also, my husband makes big purchases without consulting me. Like with cars, for instance. One time, he suddenly bought a new car and then sold it the next week to buy another one. My husband lacks a fundamental awareness that he has a family. In fact, it seems impossible to live on his spending alone. He boasts about living off the money he earns. However, in reality, I have been contributing the majority of our living expenses. I wonder if he has ever once contributed to the grocery bills. The same goes for utilities, which I also pay. The only time my husband contributes money for the family is perhaps once a month when we dine out. As for our daughter's educational expenses, I have been the one providing for them. But if I ever pointed that out, he would become furious. My husband has a good public image, being seen by neighbors as a high-earning, good husband. That's what the people in the neighborhood have said to me. You're lucky, aren't you, to be married to such a good husband? He's quite handsome and works at a good place, doesn't he? And that shiny new car. He's really pleasant to talk to as well. In reality, he is the worst husband. Not providing living expenses and making big purchases on his own. Yet, it seems he always runs out of money before payday. My husband always says to me, "Hey, Emily, can you lend me about $200? One of my subordinates is getting married, and I need some money to congratulate him." My husband doesn't even say please when asking for money. He invents reasons to borrow tens of thousands every month, but I've never seen any of it returned. In my husband's mind, not talking about the debt is the same as it not existing. He has never taken his family responsibilities seriously. Yet, he never fails to maintain the stance that he is the one supporting the family. In his view, housework and childcare are entirely the woman's job. When our daughter was little, she once became lethargic with a high fever. I immediately prepared to take her to the hospital, but my husband did nothing to help. Instead, he said to me, "I'm tired from work. Why should I have to drive? You can take her by yourself, can't you? Carry her if you must. Childcare is a woman's job, not mine." I was dumbfounded. Why did he even become a father? I should not have married this man, and at that moment, I decided to kill my feelings and stay by him like a robot. Some might wonder why I continue to stay married to him. I believe I am responsible too for deciding to marry that man. I have endured without considering divorce unless something decisive happens. As long as I don't hope for anything, I can continue this married life. But I never imagined he would do something like that. John was not the type to be infatuated with just one woman. At drinking parties, he would have women accompany him. But I don't think he wanted anything more than that. However, it seemed to be different with his mistress. It appears Julia, his mistress, was originally one of his subordinates. John thought his affair was a secret, but I had evidence of his infidelity. For example, I've seen a photo of the two of them together. When John was drunk and asleep on the sofa, he was clutching his smartphone. On the screen, the two of them were hugging. She must have been in her late 30s. What stood out to me was the blouse she wore, excessively open at the chest. She seemed like a woman with no class. And I've seen messages from the mistress too. On the smartphone screen, I accidentally saw messages like, "Yesterday was fun. I miss you," and "Do you love me more than your wife?" popping up. But I thought it was just a fling. The secrecy meant he didn't want to be caught by me. In other words, I believed he did not want to divorce me. I've even seen John talking to his mistress. That day, I was feeling unwell and left work early. John was working from home and seemed not to notice I was there. He was on the phone with his mistress. "Julia, you're the best. I can't wait to see you." At home, all I have is her, with no charm, just sulking. It's so dreary. If I had a kind and cute wife like you at home, I could bear it. John was talking to the mistress in a whiny voice I had never heard before. It seemed Julia answered something. John nodded in agreement. Then, John spoke again. "Of course. I'll divorce that gloomy woman soon. Should be before I retire. If we divorce after retirement, my pension would be up for grabs. Who wants that to happen? I'll have a nice retirement fund. It might be nice to use that money to open the shop you always wanted. That's why I don't want her to rely on my retirement fund. Planning to divorce me before retirement." I was shocked by that fact. It seemed Julia said something again. John is responding.
Yeah.
I currently have absolutely no savings. I'm giving up a lot for living expenses, and I don't get any gratitude from her. She may be plain, but she's solid. She probably has plenty of money saved up. So when it comes to property division, I could take half of that. I was dumbfounded. I have never received any living expenses from my husband. He says I've never shown gratitude? On the contrary. I'm the one who's been providing for all the living expenses, doing all the household chores, and taking care of the child. Before payday, he relies on my money. I've been the one paying for our daughter's tuition, and I do have a small amount of savings. But the thought of it being halved at the time of divorce, I cannot accept that. I listened to my husband's phone conversation from the shadows. I tried to remember the good times with my husband, but I realized there was none. That was when I realized that while getting married might not have been a mistake, continuing this marriage life was. Indeed, if it wasn't for my husband, my daughter wouldn't have been born. For me, my daughter is the only hope. Therefore, I must be grateful to him for giving me my daughter. I can't say that marrying him was a mistake. But that's it. I'm the one who raised our daughter, cleaned up after my husband, and took care of him. He has never done anything for me or our daughter, not even once. After being disrespected to this extent, is there any meaning in continuing this marriage? No, I don't have to endure it any longer. I quietly went outside. Probably, he's still talking. Listening to their conversation any longer would only make me feel worse. The important thing is that my husband does not love me, and he is thinking of divorce. And I, too, am considering divorce from my husband. About a month after that phone call, my husband said to me, "I'm planning to go on an overnight trip nearby to clear my head. Work has been too much, and I'm about to snap. Don't expect me back this weekend." I immediately thought he was going on a trip with his mistress. With no love left for my husband, I didn't pursue it further. I simply said, "Is that so? Enjoy your trip." He seemed to expect to be questioned. He had a puzzled look on his face. But then, I did not miss the grin he made afterward. I had resolved to take appropriate action. My husband said he would stay for only one night, but he did not return the next day. He didn't come back the day after that, or the day after that either. I idly wondered if something had happened to him. But with no love left, I thought, let whatever happens happen. A few days after my husband went on his trip, I realized my credit card was missing. When I tried to pay with my credit card at the supermarket, it wasn't in my wallet. I thought it was strange and wondered where I had placed it. But I assumed I must have forgotten it at home. I went home and searched for my credit card. However, it was nowhere to be found. I decided to call the credit card company the next day to have them stop the card's use. The next day, I got a call from my husband. He was in high spirits. "A free trip to Hawaii is the best. It's all thanks to you. Who've worked your fingers to the bone for us." Mixed feelings of being seen only as a source of money, and anger that he might have used my credit card arose. He might have been a bit drunk. But Hawaii. The overnight trip was a lie from the start. He must have planned to splurge in Hawaii all along. And to think he stole my credit card. What are you talking about? Are you in Hawaii right now? He must have happily taken his passport, too. How foolish can these people be? Don't they know that stealing someone's credit card is illegal? Or are they so ignorant and shameless that they don't even consider that? That's right. You just keep saving money and never spend it. I felt sorry for your money, so I decided to use it. I can hear his mistress' voice too.
Hey,
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks to your money, our trip to Hawaii is going to be memorable. There's nothing better than a free trip. It's Julia. A vile, vulgar mistress without common sense. She must have enthusiastically agreed to my husband's plan. Even though I knew he had stolen my credit card, I decided to ask my husband again. "Did you steal my credit card?"
yeah,
"That's right, you're just a boring woman who saves money." Since we were planning to divorce soon anyway, I thought I'd make good use of the money you saved up. And if I'm going to Hawaii, it might as well be with a hot woman, right? That's why I have a great woman by my side. She's grateful to be having a good time on your dime. My husband laughs. Egged on by my husband, his mistress also laughed. They are the lowest of the low. "I see," I said and hung up the phone. I immediately called the credit card company to have them stop the card's use. The credit card company listened carefully. They told me the card will be stopped immediately, which made me feel relieved. I wonder if my husband and his mistress will realize in a few minutes that the card has been disabled? Or maybe it will take a day. It seems they noticed sooner than I thought, as my husband called me with a panicked voice. "What the hell is going on, Emily? The card's not working." He's hopelessly foolish. "I'd like to know why you thought the card would still work. You've spent 2 million yen with my card. Something is seriously wrong with you," my husband said in a panic. "What's mine is yours, right? I'm your family, it's not strange for me to use it." I didn't steal it, so call off the block immediately. Anger welled up inside me. I am not your family. My only family is my daughter. You are nothing but an inconvenient burden. He seemed even more panicked. Have you forgotten all the good I've done for you? I am your husband. You should show me more respect. Are you okay with us getting divorced? I couldn't help but snort with laughter. Does my husband truly believe that our marriage has any value left? You're the worst husband, capable only of spouting nonsense. I'd be happy to divorce such a stupid person. Respect? How can I respect someone that has nothing to respect? My husband sounded like he was on the verge of tears. Serves him right. Hi. I trusted you'd be fine and brought your credit card. I have hardly any cash. I thought you'd allow me to use your credit card if I called. You're not so petty, are you? When I get back home, I'll give you a souvenir. It's more baffling than infuriating. And the way he calls me you, it's hard to even listen. First of all, could you stop calling me you? It's so distracting that I can hardly follow what you're saying. Emily, I'm truly sorry, calling you was a stupid prank gone too far. Without your credit card, we can't even buy our return flight tickets. Please, call off the freeze. I'm begging you. To think that I've been married to such a man, it even makes me feel pitiful. Of course, I had no intention of lifting the block. Oh really? Why don't you use that brain of yours to figure something out? Weren't you planning to divorce me before retirement anyway? I put extra emphasis on the word you. I have never called my husband you before. Of course, he must have realized that I called him you. He still tries to speak, a bit offended. Emily. What is this you? Show some respect. I am the head of the house and... I cut him off. Anyway, I know nothing about it. Do as you like. And without paying any more attention to what my husband might say, I harshly hung up. When will they come back? But there are things to do before that. As I plan my next move, I looked around the room. Then, I decided to sell the house. In fact, the house was an inheritance from my parents. At the time, my husband was annoyed about having the house in my name. He was so insistent for it to be changed to his, that I lied and told him the house was transferred to him. In reality, the house is still in my name. So I can sell it immediately. Even for a pittance. To me, there was no good memories in this house. I can't help but laugh when I imagine my husband's face when he returns from Hawaii and realizes there is no house. I called the dealer and began throwing everything out of the room. I also talked to my daughter about all of this. She was furious. Mom, you don't have to put up with this anymore. If you don't have a place to stay, you can come to my house. My daughter loathed her father deeply. By the way, he doesn't have my contact information. So there is no way for him to get hold of you unless you reach out to him. He doesn't even know where I live. But isn't it kind of exciting? I want to see the look on his face when he finds out the house is gone. I'm going to take the day off work and come over to help you out. I was grateful to my daughter. Together, we threw away most of the stuff. Some items we took to the recycle shop. It took the whole day to get everything done. No matter how soon my husband would return, it wouldn't be until tomorrow at the earliest. I made sure not to forget to call the real estate agent. The real estate agent was puzzled as to why I was in such a hurry. But I didn't know when my husband would return. Everything needed to be settled quickly. In the end, the house sold for a pretty decent price. Perhaps I could have gotten a bit more if I had taken my time. But that didn't matter to me. I just wanted it sold quickly. My husband kept calling incessantly, but I never picked up. After about 3 days, the calls stopped. It seems he finally gave up and turned to his parents for support. And somehow he managed to return to the country. I got a call from my in-laws, too. They seemed to take this matter very seriously, and thought it would be understandable if I chose to divorce. They apologized for their disappointing son and informed me that, although it cost a considerable amount of money, my husband had returned. On the day I was told he would return, my husband called again. There was no house left. He was more bewildered than complaining. I answered the phone. "What is it?" "That's right, we need to talk about the divorce, don't we? I won't discuss it just the two of us, though. Expect to have a lawyer involved, okay?" It had been a while since I heard my husband's voice. He sounded completely exhausted. What happened to the house? What does this mean? The keys don't work, and above all, there's a sign saying, for rent or sale. Did you sell the house without telling me? My house. I couldn't help but laugh at my husband's pathetic state. I was uncontrollably amused. "It's not yours, you know. You're such a fool to forget that. That house was mine. It's in my name, so there's wrong for me to sell it." John still seemed flustered, but I continued. "From now on, please go through my lawyer for everything. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next. You don't think there will be a division of assets, do you?" "Well, we'll see how it turns out in court, won't we? Goodbye, for now." Although John seemed to be saying something, I hung up the phone. I felt incredibly liberated. Later, I heard that John wasn't fired from his job, but had faced a significant pay cut. It was because the person he had an affair with was his subordinate. And aside from the leave he had already applied for, he had taken many more days off. With no house to live in and no more financial support from his wife, at first, he seemed to have lived with his mistress. But eventually, the mistress must have grown tired of his attitude, especially when he had no money. The mistress ended their cohabitation quite early and quit her job. Perhaps she saw no point in working at the same place as a now worthless person. Abandoned by his mistress, he was living in a small apartment. He apparently didn't even have enough money to buy a TV, and was planning to move back to his parents' home soon. After that, the divorce was finalized through a lawyer. When I saw my husband for the first time in a while, he looked thin and spiritless. I wondered why I had put up with such a man for so many years. He then said, "You really have no intention of starting over?" Did he still think I had even a little love left for him? To me, John was nothing more than a hindrance in my new life. "I don't love you anymore. To be more precise, I haven't loved you for a long time. I should have initiated the divorce sooner." He hung his head. Later, I heard him crying bitterly. Even hearing that, my heart didn't move even a tiny bit. There was no division of assets, because there was nothing to divide. The sales of the house wasn't much. And the $13,000 that was used by John and the mistress trip also played a role. I filed a criminal complaint for the fraudulent use of my credit card and fought it thoroughly. Additionally, it was recognized that the marital relationship had been destroyed by my husband's affair. As a result, he had to pay me compensation. I am currently living at my daughter's apartment, but plan to move out soon. It's because I had worked steadily that I can now live comfortably on my own. No longer do I need to live watching my husband's moods. Right now, I'm looking at a pamphlet of a recreational center. I'm thinking of living for myself from now on. Maybe I'll sign up for that hula dance course that caught my eye. Being in my 50s still feels young, and I intend to live as I please from here on out.
I want a baby of my own." While looking at a colleague's baby, my husband muttered this carelessly. My husband's colleague. Jennifer smiled upon hearing my husband's words. To an outsider, it might look like a peaceful scene. But I am the only one who knows the hidden truth behind his words. What? A baby of yours. The moment they heard my words, their faces turned pale instantly. My name is Rachel. I have recently decided to build a new house. It's a custom-built, newly constructed single-family home. Both Bob and I designed our dream house. We went a little crazy while deciding on the house, and the quotation was a little over budget. Bob insisted on building the house at a certain area. I really want it to be in this area. The area my husband chose was quite far from the apartment where we were living. Moreover, it became far from both of our workplaces. Why there? How about this area? It seems like a good place. No, it has to be here. My husband was stubborn, and eventually, I gave in, and the location was decided. The construction went smoothly, and we were able to complete the move on time. We were excited to be living in our dream house, but one day, I'm home. This is my colleague, Jennifer. We met around the corner. Good evening, it's very nice to meet you. Your husband has been very helpful at work. My husband suddenly brought home a female colleague, Jennifer. She came into the house with a big smile. It's very nice to meet you too. Have you eaten? Would you like to have dinner with us? Oh, that's too much trouble for you. Do you really mean it? Of course, it's no trouble. Come and join us. Afterwards, Jennifer freely enjoyed my cooking, even indulging in some alcohol and leaving our house slightly tipsy. It's a coincidence, but it turns out her parents' house is in this neighborhood. Oh, really? Bob, let me know in advance if you're bringing someone home next time. Come on, it's fine. Neighborly relations are important, right? I sighed heavily, he just doesn't get it. According to what my husband told me, Jennifer is his colleague of the same age and they're the closest at work. Jennifer once made a mistake, and my husband covered for her. And since then she's been fond of him. I half listened to the story. But since that day, conversations with my husband have been mostly about Jennifer. Even when I subtly changed the subject, it somehow circled back to her. I didn't particularly want to know, but I ended up learning a lot about Jennifer. She's single, living with her parents, and apparently quite popular at work because she is attractive. Well, she's a bit brazen, but she's a neighbor we'll be dealing with for a long time. I thought we should try to get along as much as possible. That was until it seems Jennifer is pregnant. Really? Is she? I had gotten used to my husband casually calling her Jennifer. But I was quite surprised to hear that she was pregnant. I hadn't heard about her dating anyone. Who is the father? Apparently, she doesn't know. She's saying she won't marry and is planning to raise the child alone. I see, that's tough. Yeah, so I think we have to help her out. I looked at my husband, who seemed strangely enthusiastic, with a cold gaze. Jennifer lives at her parents' home, and there's no need for my husband, just a colleague and neighbor, to butt in. It seems like my husband considers Jennifer almost like family. I wish he would pay a bit more attention to his own family. We've bought a house and I want to have children soon, but he never brings up the topic. Whenever I subtly suggest it, he changes the subject. Does he care more about someone else's baby than his own family? Holding this frustration towards my husband, I was shopping at the supermarket one day when... Hi Rachel. Hello Mary. Long time no see. I ran into Jennifer's mother at the supermarket. Jennifer visited our house so often that Mary once came to apologize to me. I keep telling her not to barge into other people's homes uninvited. Mary apologized deeply, and since then, we would chat whenever we met outside. I heard the news. Jennifer is pregnant. Congratulations. Thank you. Mary smiled, but she seemed somewhat distressed. What's wrong? When I asked, she sighed softly and shared with me. I'm happy about the grandchild, but she's fully expecting us to take care of the baby. She won't listen when we suggest daycare. We're not young anymore, and it's tough to look after a baby all day. Is that so? Moreover, she won't tell us who the father is, and says she'll live with us indefinitely without marrying. Frankly, I can't just be happy about the situation. It seems Jennifer is completely relying on her parents, who are quite fed up with it. She's an adult. I wish she'd live without depending on us. Mary said this with a tired expression. A few days later, while out on a workday, I spotted a familiar figure on the opposite side of the street. Jennifer? Jennifer, now visibly pregnant, was entering a baby clothing store with someone. I didn't call out to her, but watched casually. The scene that unfolded before my eyes made me, oh dear. Muttering to myself, I let out a wry smile. Several months later, she's given birth. Early in the morning, my husband woke me up, shaking me and showing me his phone screen. It looked like a chat screen with Jennifer. There was a picture of a newborn baby. Come on, we gotta go to the hospital. What? The hospital won't be open yet. They won't let anyone but family in until the visiting hours. Oh, right. Until the hospital opened, my husband was restless. Watching him, I sighed in exasperation. Bah. We have to bring a gift. He brought out a carefully wrapped present from the back of the closet. That's quite lavish for a colleague's baby gift, isn't it? Well, yeah. Jennifer is like a sister to me. I'm truly as happy as if it were my own. Few hours later, we drove to the hospital. Jennifer. Congratulations. Bob. You came all the way. And you too, Rachel, thank you. No problem. Congratulations. You must be tired. How are you feeling? I'm doing okay. Jennifer seemed a bit tired but smiled at our visit. Would you like to meet the baby? Is it okay? Yes, of course. So, the three of us headed to the newborn nursery. That baby is? My husband gazed at Jennifer's child through the glass, his eyes appearing slightly moist. Babies really are wonderful. Bob, why don't you have your own child? Yeah, I want my own child too. Hearing this, Jennifer smiled broadly. Bob also smiled happily. To an outsider, it might look like a peaceful scene. But I am the only one who knows the hidden truth behind this scene. Oh, what are you saying, Bob? The child is right in front of you. Bae? Bob turned around with a puzzled look, and I pointed at Jennifer's child with a smile. That child. That's your child, isn't it? What? As the two of them stood dumbfounded, I pulled out something from my bag and declared, "This is the investigation result from the detective agency. I know about your affair." The moment they understood my words, their faces turned pale. Ha, ha. What are you talking about, Rachel? That's right. That child isn't Bob's. Oh? Should we do a DNA test on the child then? I confronted them with evidence photos. We were insistent on building our house near that place because Jennifer's parents' house was there, right? It's easier to cheat if our houses were close. The photo showed the two of them hugging near Jennifer's parents' home. I thought it was suspicious. How adamant you were about that place. After that, your behavior made it clear you were having an affair. I'm not foolish enough not to suspect an affair with such obvious behavior. And then, I showed them another photo of the two coming out of a hotel. Did you think you could keep deceiving me? If so, you both are incredibly stupid. Well, fools would cheat and even have a child, I suppose. I scattered a pile of photos in front of them. Also, I saw your affair with my own eyes. I saw you enter a baby clothing store together while I was working on the weekend. I suspected something before that and had hired a detective agency to gather evidence. But seeing it with my own eyes, I laughed in disbelief before shock. Did you really think you wouldn't get caught in broad daylight? That day, the person with Jennifer was my husband. He was happily holding hands with Jennifer, choosing baby clothes. The moment I saw that scene, I felt disbelief and then anger. How dare you? I will never forgive you. As I said this, the two of them trembled and looked at me. I'm sorry, Rachel. It was just a moment of weakness. A moment of weakness led to a pregnancy? Did you hear that, Jennifer? Quite the irresponsible man. I'm sorry. Please, let this go. What? Are you out of your mind? I told you I won't forgive you. I stomped on the photos of their affair and delivered the final blow. You two will face hell for this. I feel sorry for that newborn, but this is all your own doing. Your actions have brought misery to many people. You'll regret this for the rest of your lives. Under my cold gaze, the two of them collapsed to the floor. Afterward, I demanded compensation for their affair. I also filed for divorce from my husband. Jennifer's parents, upon learning of this, came to me and apologized on their knees. We'll take the grandchild. We're going to cut ties with Jennifer. I understand. It will be tough, but please do your best. I couldn't forgive Jennifer for the affair, but I had no intention of punishing her child or her parents. Jennifer's family would probably be ostracized in the neighborhood. I couldn't help them, but I hoped they would overcome this. My husband resisted the divorce but eventually signed the papers after discussions with the lawyers. Then I moved out of once was our newly built dream house. This house was mortgaged based on my income. Our earnings were about the same, and without me, the payments would be difficult for him. With the compensation he owed me, my husband quickly became impoverished. He had to sell the house and now lives in a dirty, 40-year-old apartment. My in-laws were furious and declared they would sever ties with him. Furthermore, people in our former neighborhood who were connected to my husband's company heard about the incident. Jennifer rushed back to work to pay the compensation to me. But she eventually had to quit as she lost her place there. Rumor has it she's making a living in some dubious nightlife business. My husband is still working, but it seems only a matter of time before he submits his resignation. I assumed he would marry Jennifer after our divorce, but they didn't end up together. Well, even if they did, it would just increase their debts and they'd be looked down upon even more. After the divorce, I've been enjoying my single life. I'm not in a hurry to remarry, but if a good opportunity comes, I might consider it. Next time, I hope to marry a faithful man who definitely won't cheat.